5-Year Mission, the podcast, episode 55.
By now you figured out that this is the 5-Year Mission podcast.
Welcome to 5-Year Mission, the podcast, the only podcast hosted by a band called 5-Year Mission. I am one of your hosts, Andy Fark. Tonight, we're delving into a quick little creature feature, if you will, parentheses, and aliens. So I'm going to be joined by Mike Rittenhouse, who's looking down at his phone right now. And also by Chris Spurgeon. Creature feature. And last but not least, with the flurry of what looks like bees in the background of his Zoom meeting, Noah Butler. Did you just take a drink of a martini?
I did.
Are you living in 1953 all of a sudden?
In my mind.
How long have you known Noah?
Not martini.
Why does this come as a surprise?
Martini Noah, though?
Yeah.
Well, I guess teeny is in the name, so he is small.
Many facets of Noah.
Mike is holding up a picture of himself on his phone, but it looks like it's actually just him on the Zoom, even though it's his phone. I wonder how long his arm can hold it up.
It looks like he's smelling his finger in the photo that he's holding up too.
He's not very strong. I can't imagine this would last very long.
That's what she said.
To Mike. So what are we doing tonight, Andy?
Well, we are going to be covering our favorite creatures and aliens of the Star Trek universe. But first off, I would like to invite everyone to like and subscribe all over where you get your podcast, YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify and all that. Rate and review. Make sure, because that's how other people will find us. So let's get that business out of the way. Also, check out our Patreon. You'll hear a commercial for it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
We do fun stuff over there.
Fun stuff.
Go over to Patreon /5-Year Mission.
That's right. The number 5.
Your mission.
So we are going to take a little trip around the Star Trek universe tonight, and the things that creep us out, the things that make us laugh, the enemies we make, the friends we make in creatures and aliens. They may be humanoid, but that doesn't mean that we can't get along. So which one of you dummies wants to start us off?
I will.
Noah, the one that we only got 2 of his suggestions before we started recording, so one of them is definitely going to be a surprise.
That's all right. At least 6 minutes before I logged on to Zoom, I picked the other 2.
Without a single word to us, so we could prepare.
Exactly. I'll start with. I'm going to start with the Horta, and most of my picks tonight are based on strong visceral memories of watching Star Trek as a young person, as a kid or adolescent. And so starting with the Horta is one that was both funny, because I remember watching it with a friend and dubbing it the Pizza Monster and always kind of calling it the Pizza Monster from that point forward, because it did seem hokey even in the early 80s when I was watching it. It still, was kind of this hokey thing. But that episode, which to me is one of my favorite episodes, and it's just so good. Like, even though it had this sort of, we called it the Pizza Monster, and it was this kind of hokey alien looking thing. It was just such a brilliantly written episode. Such a great character in the Horta itself, and the Mother Horta. That episode had everything. It had so many people, dying, not red shirts, but as Mike likes to mention from time to time, all the orange jumpsuit people who died, more than red shirts died, more orange jumpsuit people died. Just the tunneling and the Spock doing the mind meld with the creature and kind of the tension of the whole episode just really made that creature stick out to me in my brain as just one of the great creatures of Star Trek. Even though it was a little hokey looking, it had character and depth to it enough that it just became just one of my favorite things, even as a kid. I even think we tried to recreate it at one point as like a Halloween costume.
Oh, when you were little?
Yeah, when I was a kid, because me and my next door neighbor, my buddy Justin, who lived next door to me, we loved Star Trek so much, and we would build these cardboard boxes that and try to draw the panels and controls of the helm at the Enterprise, and pretended that we had these little plastic jewelry cases that we would like flip open like communicators, and so we just play acted it a lot as a kid because we were always watching it in reruns at like dinner time, and the Horta was one that was just great. And I remember we tried, I don't know I forget what we used, like a blanket or a sheet or something, and tried to like kind of recreate the big red splotches all over it and the hairiness thing. I don't remember if it worked all that well, but it was something we did. So that's just one of my like very strongest and earliest memories of Star Trek, and I think still stands the test of time as far as a great creature and a great character, even though it didn't speak except to Spock. I just think it's a great character and a great creature for Star Trek.
Well, I mean, it's definitely from one of the most iconic TOS episodes too, Devil in the Dark. So it's like they started off thinking it was just a killing machine that had like zero mercy or anything like that, but then they come to realize that it's protecting its kids, which they were just like tossing the eggs out of the airlock and destroying them and everything. And then finally they come to realize that this is a living creature who's just protecting their children who were and this thing was here first. So no, it wasn't the killing machine they started off thinking it was.
And I remember showing that episode. It was one of the first Star Trek episodes I showed to my daughter just about a year ago when she was 8 or 9. And I remember after it was sort of revealed that those were the eggs, like I could just see this look on her face that I know in her brain she was just like, think of all the eggs they killed. They were doing this and they were doing that to them, and they were like I could just see the shock. They're like, oh my god, and so I think that was effective, even though it was it's a old show from the 60s. It was even effective on a modern little girl watching that.
What I think might be the most effective thing about the Horta is that it shouldn't work. It's basically this mottled rubber lump that rolls around and doesn't talk. It doesn't really do much, but the way I think the effectiveness of this character relies on the characters around it. So with Spock and Kirk and the way they interact with it, and the miners that are down there, the story is really good. The creature itself is really, it doesn't really do much, but the story that is wrapped around it makes it a really cool character, So I think that's what makes it so effective, because if it was just this monster rolling around that they had to kill, it would be very underwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. Didn't we actually see somebody had made like a motorized version of the Horta in Vegas?
Yeah, no, that was in at Trek Fest, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I don't remember where we were, but somebody did have one.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that was for the parade at Trek Fest one year.
Okay, because I couldn't remember the size or the scale of it or anything like that. It seemed like it was a much smaller version. Somebody might have had something where they had like they were wearing it and then they would get down on the floor and they would look like the Horta.
Yeah, that sounds familiar too.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe it was both.
You might be thinking of the Rock Lords, Noah.
Well, a lot of those things travel too. You know, we'll see them at some random convention, and then we'll see them pop up elsewhere. The same people, so that happens pretty often too.
True.
Yeah, it's definitely an ambitious cosplay to try to pull off. I mean, it's not the kind of costume that you wear and you can, you know, see out of, or communicate through. So I think the one we saw was remote control on wheels and just kind of rolled around. I think that's really the best way to go with that one.
Oh, well, Mike, you want to give us your first creature pick?
Sure. My first choice is going to be the Paw Wraiths from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Let me preface this by saying that I recently discovered that Noah has watched zero Star Trek other than the original series. So,
and let me preface this as each one of you tell me whatever creature you're talking about, I will be looking it up as you say it. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I purposely chose all my picks as stuff that Noah has no idea what I'm talking about.
So can I just look it up and do a Google image search and then try to guess what it is based on the Google image?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Sure. Let's see what your Google image brings you.
So your Paw Wraith is some sort of action figure, some sort of like little chess figure that spits out fire or something. That's what I'm getting from the three images that I see here. Does that make any sense? Is it a totem? Is it a
Explain it to him.
It's a wraith, so it must be some sort of ghost-like creature.
That's closer.
All right.
So in Deep Space Nine, one of the main storylines through the entire series is that the wormhole has these wormhole aliens in it that they call the Prophets. They are some kind of omnipotent beings that live in the wormhole, and a millennia ago they expelled these other beings, basically I think of like the same race, but they're evil, and those are the Paw Wraiths. They're like the evil wormhole aliens, and they sealed them in these caves on Bajor. And so over the course of the series, they're mentioned several times. There's a couple of moments throughout where we actually get to kind of see one. There was an episode where Keiko O'Brien returns from Bajor and she's possessed by a Paw Wraith. And there's another episode where Paw Wraiths take over Jake Sisko and I think Kira.
Yeah.
And they're fighting
on Promenade.
Yep. And then of course, there's a big storyline at the end of the series that kind of wraps it up with the Paw Wraiths. Gul Dukat's trying to release them from the fire caves so that he can help them take over Bajor and the wormhole. And Kai Wynn is sort of involved, and there's some gross scenes, and but you know what? In the end, Kai Wynn, she kind of turns around, even though she sucks throughout the show.
Right. Oh yeah. In the very end.
Yeah.
Very last possible second.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, like at the very end, it's
kind of a oh no.
Yeah.
moment.
She redeems herself a little bit, just a little bit. But yeah. So the Paw Wraiths, they're kind of a cool thread throughout all of Deep Space Nine. I know Andy knows what I'm talking about. What do you think of the Paw Wraiths, Andy?
Oh my God. It's definitely one of the more interesting parts of that whole storyline with Gul Dukat and that final season. But Noah, I would probably you remember the scene in Ghostbusters when all the ghosts are getting out of that containment unit at the firehouse?
I do.
That's basically the power race. They're going out and their main goal is to just it up.
All right, so the dude from the EPA that shows up and shuts off the containment unit.
Power.
That's basically Gul Dukat.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to. He's like it's like he's from the EPA and he's trying to shut off the containment unit in the fire caves.
Is it true that man has no dick?
Yeah. Yes.
Tell him about the Twinkie.
What about the Twinkie?
So
I never really liked the power wraiths. I mean, for obvious reasons, but I also they were too intangible. It just and overpowered. You know, they're those kind of creatures, these enemies that are really, really difficult to defeat, but also again, they're just intangible. So I wasn't a huge fan of. Yes, it did help drive a storyline, but I'm not a fan.
I just kind of like the wormhole aliens that we never really learned a ton about until like the final like 3 seasons, really. To really just 2 seasons, last season and a half, really.
Yeah.
They kind of had like that little counterpart thing, and so like they were like, oh, these, they come from us, but you know, they were like they represented the worst of us, so we had to get rid of them, and like the whole like
wormhole.
Yeah.
What a bunch of wormholes.
Yeah.
But the fact that like Kai Wynn was like driving herself insane trying to figure out like where the Pile Wraiths resided and like how to like utilize their power and everything like that, like that whole thing when like Gul Dukat was like manipulating her in like the full, I guess, like Bajoran cosplay. Was a pretty awesome storyline to involve like the whole like wrap up the whole like Pa Wraith thing. And then Kai Wynn's redemption when she tackles Gul Dukat into the flames in the caves, the fire caves, was pretty baller. And it's like, okay, maybe she wasn't so bad after all, but she still was.
Didn't Kai Wynn flood the station with chronoton radiation before the that battle was completed?
Wow.
I just want to make sure I'm remembering it right.
Remembering it
exactly.
So
that is correct, Noah.
Thanks. The dominant third image that keeps popping up in Google search, which is what was confusing me. I finally found a caption for it, and it says, "An ancient Bajoran artifact containing a Pa Wraith."
Okay.
That just keeps popping up as one of the Google images when you search it. So that's what that was. That's why I said it looked like a chess piece.
That makes way more sense.
All right, Chris, what you got?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Mugato for a minute. It's probably no.
Wait, let me look this up, Chris. I want to get a Google image.
It's probably no secret that I am a fan of
the Gumato.
We'll get there.
So this is some sort of rhino ape. That's what I'm seeing on Google Images.
I don't know why I like this thing so much, but it just entertains me to no end. Not only because of what it is, but also kind of how it just kind of the history of this thing. And originally in the original script, so this is a beast. It is, like you said, it looks like a rhino ape. It's this ape-like creature with a horn on its head. It's covered in fur. Yeah. It has,
we know the song.
It has, I didn't know this, but it has serrated teeth. And so not only does it bite you, but it like, rends the flesh, and the bite is poisonous. It can only be, the only known cure for the poison is the Mako root, which apparently the Kanu 2, which is kind of a medicine woman, has to be involved for some reason.
With her sweet orange vest.
Yeah, so this creature is from the planet Neural, and it was originally called the Neural Great Ape, but then they changed the name to the Gumato. But Forrest Kelly couldn't say Gumato for some reason. And then in the episode, they call it Mugatu, This is Private Little War almost the entire time. And I think someone might actually call it the Gumato as well. So they had it all. Whoever was working continuity that day was fired.
Yeah.
So, it has the strength of 10 men. It's just a badass creature. But I just think it's so funny because it's really super territorial, and it just comes out of nowhere and attacks people I mean, you'd think that if you lived on a planet full of these beasts that you would have some kind of contingency plans and defenses set up, but no, it just leaps off a cliff onto your back and bites you. I don't know. And it also originally was in Private Little War. It also showed up in Lower Decks. It's Gumato. Is that the name of the episode?
Yeah.
Something like that. And in that episode, we find out that they're endangered. And a couple of fun facts about the Mugato that I didn't know that I think are hilarious. One, phaser fire to the Mugato genitals renders them sterile. So
that's all.
Yeah.
Where did this canon fact come from?
This is
it's from our Galileo 7 video.
Oh.
Yeah. So since they're endangered, you got to watch out for that. No phaser fire on their genitals. The other thing that I found out, which might even be funnier,
they like to watch.
Exactly. If a male Mugato encounters a couple Mugato in the act, the Mugato, because it's territorial, it will either fight the male to win the female, or it will just watch until they're done, and then they just hang out and go to sleep together.
Like a
where are you getting this information, Chris?
This is directly from Lower Decks.
I don't know if this is canon.
Oh, it's canon now.
Oh, it's there.
Thanks to I don't know about the phaser fire to the groin thing, but
yeah.
I don't know where that stemmed from. I don't remember hearing that in any of the episodes.
Well, I got all my information from what I didn't know already, I got from Memory Alpha. So
okay.
Chris, did you also see in Memory Alpha something I saw very quickly that was really hilarious? Was that the person who created the costume that was created and performed by this person named Janos Prohaska?
Janos.
Yeah. And it appeared on season 1, episode 22 of Here's Lucy.
Yeah.
And so there's this picture of the Mugatu without a horn hugging Lucille Ball. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
If you look that picture up, it's quite funny.
I had not seen that one.
I don't know what really draws me to this thing. I just think it's really funny. I have a couple Mugato action figures. When we got to Private Little War and I got the episode, I didn't, the first song, I had a couple songs that I wrote for that, but I really wanted to do a Mugato song. I had the first song in the album, so I didn't want it to be a Mugato song. I didn't want it to be jokey. And then, so that's why I made that as kind of a B-side, but I really like that song and I like playing it. So, but that's why. It's because I knew I had this episode and I had to write a Mugato song. So,
and we still technically haven't released that Mugato song, have we? It's not been officially released in any way, has it?
I don't remember.
It was a Kickstarter download bonus.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
I think we did
From year 4.
it as a,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what else I can say about the Mugato. It's just
I remember
it's one of my favorite creatures.
Yeah, I remember as a kid again watching Star Trek for the first time, and anytime a creature showed up, it instantly made the episode better, no matter how hokey the creature was. It was just like as like an 8-year-old kid, it was just yes, bring on the creatures, bring on the aliens, bring on any of the weird stuff. And that
even if it's Clint Howard.
Even if it's Clint Howard, no, definitely if it's Clint Howard, that was great too.
Especially Baylock.
Yeah, especially Baylock. But I mean, I think that made that episode to me as a kid, like sort of worth watching, whereas otherwise I think it would have been a kind of a boring episode. Um, as an 8-year-old kid watching that, I think the Mugatu made it like if the Mugatu had not been in it, I don't know how much
Yeah.
it would have held my attention as a
There's
kid.
kind of two different stories going on there because there's the one story where the Mugato takes a bite out of Kirk, and so he's kind of down for the count, and the Kanutu is helping him out. And then there's the other story about the two warring factions on this planet, and they intertwine. But I kind of agree. I like both stories, but the Mugato, especially the second time we see the Mugato, where it kind of chases them around in the trees. You know, first it jumps down and they're kind of in these hills, and then they're in these trees. It's just such a random, goofy thing in that episode, but I like it. What about you, Andy? What's your first?
Let's go ahead and stick with the theme of Noah not knowing about it. And let's go ahead and cover the race that likes to make things go, and they are smart, even though you think they are not smart. The Pakled.
Oh man,
How you spell that, Andy?
Pakled.
Pakled. Oh, it's the dudes with the big eyebrows that you got on your background.
In my background right now, yeah.
Yeah.
The Pakled to me are absolutely fascinating that they're even still alive, like just as a race in general, because they are just dumb as hell. And the only reason they are able to even travel in space is because they keep on somehow fooling people to think that they're dumb with the way they look and they talk and they act, and then just steal their technology from them. And that's just amazing to me that they've had a planet full of Pakled that hasn't just somehow, the entire planet hasn't slipped on a banana peel and fallen down some stairs somewhere out in the universe. It's the stupidest thing in the world to me. And I did not realize how many times the Pakled actually appeared in just Star Trek in general. Like there's like a ton of DS9 episodes so far, even like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They appear in some form in 7 episodes of Lower Decks so far.
Yeah, that's where I mainly know them from. I think looking at your background with the Pakleds, your Zoom background, I recognize those, and I remember the makeup being, as I recall, it was rather immobile. I just remember it looked really goofy.
Oh yeah, it was definitely goofy makeup.
It doesn't look like a rubber mask to me. It looks like it's just
a big dumb guy with goofy eyebrows.
Yeah. Goofy eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they appeared in any other episodes after.
This is a Samaritan Snare.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that they appeared in anything other than that until Lower Decks. So they were in several episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Let's see.
I assume just like background characters, like
more or less. Yeah. They'd be like hanging out in quarks and stuff, and
okay.
Yeah, the one where we first met Lursa and B'Etor, the Duras sisters, they were in that episode too.
Okay.
They were in Preemptive Strike with the because they were delivering vaccines. Yeah, it's weird. And then they were in like a couple episodes of DS9 here and there. But I mean, other than that, we didn't really see a ton of them, which is why I was glad that Mike McMahon decided that he loved the Pakled so much that he wanted to give them like some front and center attention on Lower Decks, just because they were such an absolute cartoon character
they really
already.
I love how they call every ship the Enterprise.
Yeah. Oh, in everybody's Janeway.
Yeah.
I think that they've been used really effectively on Lower Decks because
Mhm.
they're actually kind of a prominent enemy that keeps popping up, and
Yeah.
yet they are so inept that
Mhm.
somehow they manage to get away with what they're doing, and it's just against all odds it works.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, like I said, they made for the perfect like cartoon character because they remind me of do you remember the old Looney Tunes monster that'll be like, oh, I'm gonna love him and pet him and I'm gonna name him George.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically like an entire race of those things.
Yeah.
And I love that when we first met them on TNG, in order to get, because they kidnapped Geordie LaForge to have him like work on their ship, and to show them Picard's whole idea to like scare them into giving them back was like, we're gonna do a show of force with the Enterprise, and like fired at their ship, but it wasn't even like missiles or anything. They basically shot fireworks at them, and it scared the Packlids so much that they gave LaForge back. Oh, it's so good. Noah, what do you got for your next pick?
My next pick was a creature that I, of course, wrote a song about, that we sometimes refer to as the Salt Vampire, from the titular episode, The Man Trap. Actually, I don't think they ever say they don't ever say the Man Trap in the episodes. So it's not there's no titular line.
They
don't actually say Salt Vampire either.
No.
I'm not sure where that how did it even...
They say Salt Vampire in Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I bet they do.
What is it called?
It's like, from what I'm looking at,
it's like
just called
the M117 creature or something like that.
M113.
113, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, native to planet M113. But they say, it still calls it, like, it's still called Salt Vampire in Memory Alpha. Salt. Or apparently a salt succubus.
Oh. It is pretty.
This is another one that burned place in my memory, I should say, when I was a kid. But this was not like, I remember it didn't seem hokey to me. Like when I was watching as a kid, like it seemed genuinely creepy and freaky and cool, and scary. And even when it was in its sort of McCoy's ex-girlfriend,
his lady form,
just her sort of weird sort of dead eyes that she would have sometimes. Just creepy. It was creepy. Like it was all around creepy watching it as a kid. There was just like a lot of tension in that episode. And it was just cool. It was a cool looking creature, and it was just cool how it left the suction cups all over their faces. And I just loved it as a kid. I just absolutely loved it. Now, as I've rewatched it again as an adult many times, the like sort of slow motion agony that Kurt has when he's like getting attacked by it, and just like the delayed reaction is just so hilariously terrible, like just so hilariously badly acted, and that it's funny. But when I was watching it as a kid, like it was just everything about it was cool. Like the only thing that was not cool about it was like they did not show that creature enough. Like there was just they didn't show it enough. Like they really only kind of really revealed its full form there at the end of the episode, and it was just like
oh yeah, in Kirk's quarters.
Yeah, it's like,
am I remembering right that Spock came in and punched it?
I think he slapped her, and then like in the human form, like the woman, like I think he just like nailed her like 2 or 3 times, and she just didn't react at all. Yeah, which was pretty cool. That she didn't react, just like she's like, yeah, that.
Well, at this point,
nice shot, Vulcan.
Do we know how strong Spock is? Because I know later episodes we see him crumple metal objects like paper.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good question. At this point, we really know how strong his slap would be.
No, this is super early.
Yeah.
right? It's
Maybe
like
they didn't know yet.
it's like track 2 on year 1, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the first episode to air.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah.
it was I think it's like the 8th episode they filmed or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
something about the salt vampire is that it's actually a really tragic story because this creature it's the last of its kind, isn't it?
I
Or
believe
something like
so.
that. And it's trying to survive, and the only way it can survive is through the consumption of salt. And so they are this guy that lives on this planet with her gets salt there, but they're out of it, and so it starts attacking people just out of survival, not because it's trying to kill people. It just has to survive. And so it's a really tragic story because in doing this, obviously the crew is put on the defensive at first, and then the offensive, and they end up killing it. But
Yeah.
had they been able to get at what it needed, maybe it would have survived, and maybe they could have. It's one of those examples, early examples in Trek before the Prime Directive was really established, where you see them kill something that they don't know anything about, and they just attack it because it's attacking them.
Right.
And it's interesting because I kind of wonder if they would have handled it that way had it been later on, a later episode.
Picard wouldn't have killed it.
No,
You are correct,
No
Chris,
way.
that it was the last surviving individual on that planet.
Okay.
Species was thought to be extinct. It says, however, a century later, more living members of the species were encountered, and I assume that's in Lower Decks when they encountered.
They mention it in Lower Decks.
It's referencing 2 Lower Decks episodes here, so I'm wondering if they actually encounter it in one of those episodes.
It was just for like a second.
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, salt vampire. That was
Well,
it.
and of course, another salt vampire showed up in
Squire of Gothos.
Squire of Gothos, yeah,
Yep.
just as a
Statue.
taxidermied
Well,
creature on display.
Just like everything else that Trelane had, that could have just been something
Yep.
that was manufactured out of thin air. It wasn't necessarily one of those creatures.
Yeah.
But still, it's a nice touch in that episode where you see that the stuffed vampire.
Stuffed.
Yeah. It was. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah. It is a cool creature. It has that round mouth with kind of it looks very leech-like
Yeah.
in a way, and it's a creepy thing, and it has the suckers on its hands too.
Looks kind of like Sasquatch with suction cups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very very effective kind of.
Speaking of creepy things, Mike, what do you got for your next pick?
For my next pick, I have decided to go with species 8472.
Now, see, I'm going to be in the same boat as Noah on this one.
I'm gonna look this thing up.
What is it? Help me.
8472.
So in
Wait. Let me determine what it is from the images.
Okay.
It is some sort of really bad CG video game alien that looks like it's from a really bad CG video game.
Well, you're not far off.
Not far off at all.
And it hurts. It looks like it caused some kind of horrible face scarring to
Chakotay, I hope.
Chakotay. Yep. I think that's who it is.
Good.
Oh wait,
Good.
weren't those the things that even the Borg were afraid of?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so at the end of the 3rd season of Voyager, the last episode starts with a Borg cube trying to assimilate something, and you don't really get to see what it is. It's just, they do their usual spiel where they're like, resistance is futile, prepare to be assimilated. And then, the cube is just destroyed. It's just like easily just boom. And then that's it. So then later in the episode, Voyager is just like doing their thing, flying along, headed towards Earth. They've got like 70 years, but they still stop and look at nebulas for some reason. And then 15 Borg cubes or something like fly past them, like don't even stop. They're just like, holy shit, let's get the hell out of here. And so that's kind of how the episode starts. And Voyager's like, what the hell? And so they find out throughout the episode that there is like a new bad guy in town that's even scarier than the Borg, and the Borg can't assimilate it. And so the Voyager kind of works together with the Borg to find a way to stop the species. They're from like another dimension, basically. It's called fluidic space. It's like so basically the Borg opened this portal into this other realm to try and find more things to assimilate, and accidentally released this species. So the reason though that it looks like a cheap video game is because it is the first CGI animated creature on Star Trek. So which this is back in like 97, I think.
Mhm.
Like maybe 1997 or 98, somewhere around there. And so up to that point, they had CGI'd like ships and stuff like that, but they'd never done any kind of living creatures. So this is their first attempt at it.
Yeah,
and
they didn't have Spielberg cash.
Yeah.
Right.
The first few times were pretty clunky, and even the rest of the times that species appeared weren't great, but it got better as it went.
So there's a picture of is it the Doctor on Voyager?
EMH.
The guy with the
Is he bald?
bald, yeah,
Yep.
male pattern baldness,
Mhm.
where he's like looking at two of them mating. Do you remember that? That ringing a bell to you?
I mean, that could be. I know that there was. I know
That
there was
sounds like
definitely a scene where he was like looking at them. I don't remember what was happening though.
That sounds
Yeah,
like a
he's-
behind the scenes.
No, he's just sitting there watching. Well, it's like a giant wall of porn of just like of species 8472 porn that he's watching.
So that was also the episode that introduced us to 7 of 9. Actually, the second half, because that was the season finale, and that was a cliffhanger. And then the second half, which is the first episode of the 4th season, we're introduced to 7 of 9, which became like a main character for the rest of the series. And they deal with species 8472 mainly in those episodes, but they kind of come back a few times over the next couple seasons. But it was a really, I mean, it wasn't like amazing, but it was a pretty cool attempt to do something different. And it was really cool how they kind of shocked the audience with, because the Borg have always been like the big bad for Star Trek for like the last 10 years, and then suddenly there's something worse. So it was kind of a cool thing.
There, Mike, I changed my background so you can see the courting process.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there.
Lots of
There's holding hands.
This is some seriously good content right here.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of editing of that.
Chris. if you think you can do any better, let's hear your next pick.
Okay, my next pick, I chose the Medusan, who we first encountered this species in the
Clash of the
episode-
Titans.
Yes. Is there
No.
actually the Medusan was named after the Gorgon in Greek mythology because this species is non-corporeal, and so it's super intelligent. It has telepathic abilities, empathic abilities, but it's also so hideous that one look at it will drive a corporeal being mad.
Drive a man insane.
And so because of this, because looking just like at Gorgon in Greek mythology, you look on it, you turn to stone, kind of the same idea where you look on at a Medusan and you go crazy. Is There in Truth No Beauty is the episode where we first encountered the Medusan. And now currently there is a Medusan on Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zero is the name of that character. And this character actually created a suit so it could interact with corporeal beings and communicate as well. So you can kind of see that the Medusan is kind of this swirly light, and that's how it's been presented. It's been presented as a light in TOS, and then in Prodigy it's kind of this swirling multicolored light. But it's a really cool idea. In TOS, I like the idea because it's such a kind of this innocuous creature where it doesn't attack or anything, but if you approach it and are compelled to look at it, then it's extremely dangerous because it can destroy your mind. Now, another cool thing is
this is what the blind lady was transporting in the box, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Kolos, and he was an ambassador, basically.
Diana Muldaur.
Yeah, Diana Muldaur. That's right. This is it's interesting that we just talked about a species that that could attack and destroy the Borg, because the Medusan species can actually resist the Borg because of their telepathic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And they're essentially when they live in colonies, and so they're essentially a hive mind, and so that's how they can that's how they can resist the Borg, because the Borg is kind of one and the same, but the Borg is much more hostile, which makes you kind of wonder what would happen if the Medusans became a hostile species, because you can't look at them.
Yeah.
And they're telepathic and empathic, so they know what you're thinking and feeling. So it could be a really bad news. But Zero on Prodigy is a really cool character, showing you kind of a completely different aspect of this species. Whereas instead of just this inert creature in a box, and it communicates telepathically, you actually have one that runs around in this little robot body and communicates and is an actual interesting character. So I'm a fan of the Medusan. I think it's a really cool concept, and it turned out to be a pretty cool character as well.
That's one of the kind of neat things about like all the newer series kind of coming out. They they can bring back these like races that we never really got to know all that well, and
flesh
give
them out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
I mean, like with lower decks, I mean, we already talked about the Packleds.
Yeah.
And the Medusans, and then you'll see other species from the past kind of like make a quick little appearance here and there, or there's like one completely, because I mean, like, we never really knew a ton about the Orions, except for they were like space pirates.
Yeah.
But I mean, like now with like Tendi on lower decks, you get to see a whole nother side.
Yeah, a much more flesh. I like when they flesh out these characters. I mean, the Packleds are another one that they we've already talked about, and just introducing these new aspects to old characters that we thought we knew. The Gorn has been kind of revisited more than once. I'm still a fan of the original version, the video game version, and I think they used them in, was it Discovery?
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds.
There was a Gorn in one episode of Enterprise.
Enterprise too, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But
they're always different.
They've been prominent throughout the whole season of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, okay, that's right. I really enjoy the way some of the newer shows are fleshing out some species that we have seen before but didn't really know as well, and the Medusan is just one of those that I think they're doing a really good job in making a character out of what was just some random species that we'd seen once.
Right.
Yeah, I know it'll be hard for you guys to believe, but I did watch all of Prodigy. So
Well, you have a 9-year-old. So.
And I watched it with my.
Well,
with
there
my
is a new
9-year-old.
season, and there's like 3 or 4 episodes.
That's what I heard. But anyway, yeah, I like how they were taking a creature, an alien that was seen in one episode of the original series and really not mentioned again since, and then turning it into a main character. Like that's cool.
And it's like someone thought, what could we bring back? And to think that they thought of this basically like
one episode character.
A light cloud,
Yeah.
and that they'd seen in one episode. I have to think that maybe they were just a fan of that episode of TOS, and they thought, what can we do with this character? Or maybe they had a dream. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm glad they did it because it's
Yeah.
Zero's a good character.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, what you got next?
Oh, it's a race we've only seen once, and it was very recently. But I go with my second pick. I'm going with the Duplers from Lower Decks.
Duplers.
Do you remember
that?
From the episode, an embarrassment of Duplers?
That is a ridiculous species.
Exactly.
Voiced by Richard Kind.
Richard Kind. I mean, I think that's probably what made that whole. Well, like technically character, but it's basically turned into an entire race on the ship.
It's basically they get agitated and they duplicate, right?
Yeah,
they multiply. Yeah, they duplicate.
It's spelled DOO. Noah.
I got it.
Sort of like Doppler, except with an extra O instead of an extra P.
Yeah, those are funny.
Yeah,
but we don't know much about them.
No, we don't know in much of anything about them. There was the one that was on the Cerritos was just like an ambassador heading to a conference. And that's pretty much all we knew about like their planet or anything like that. But the race, if they get embarrassed or anything like that, they start duplicating themselves.
Startled or
yeah.
How would they even survive? I mean, I know obviously on Lower Decks they're playing for laughs.
Oh, obviously.
But I just in a practical sense, I can't even imagine because they would overpopulate. And
the same thing could be said about Tribbles.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Tribbles, you have glommers at least where their Tribbles are, where they come from, you at least have glommers that can kind of keep the population down.
Well, and also the Klingons get going on the great Tribble hunt.
Yeah. So you have that. With Duplers, you just have these basically humanoid creatures.
A bunch of Richard Kinds.
Do they ever, I can't remember, can they go backwards? Like
yeah, they can reduplicate by someone being mean to them.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, that's
right.
how the episode ends with them.
That's right. Okay,
because Captain Freeman tells the crew to just
yell at them.
That's right. Yeah. So that tracks. That's okay then, because if they can, one would think that where they're from, they have some kind of methodology that allows them to be able to not
duplicate
so much that it overpopulates and destroys their home world.
What's funny is that with that comparison of the Tribbles, I just now thought of that because at the end of the episode, the embarrassment of Duplers on Lower Decks, Captain Freeman, after being like basically kicked, like not being invited to this like captain's party thing on the base, just how like Scotty beamed all the Tribbles onto the bridge of the Klingon ship.
A very Scotty move.
Freeman and like beamed the Duplers directly into the party, and then like made like the Dupler bump into somebody, and then it started duplicating and ruining the party.
Yeah, I
was like, that's a pretty good little callback there. I hadn't even put two and two together on that before.
Yeah,
nice. But yeah, that was just a quick hitter because we've only met them once. I'm really hoping we'll wind up meeting them again in season 4 of Lower Decks. Just at
It
least
feels-
like a one-off episode.
Yeah, it feels like one of those things where you can make one episode about them
Mhm.
and then do a throwback every once in a while, where someone just accidentally bumps into one of a dupler and they, another one pops out and then that's it.
Yeah.
This will be
Yeah.
the kind of thing where they only appeared in one episode of Lower Decks, but 50 years from now,
Yeah.
there will be a Star Trek series where the duplers are like the villain for the entire season.
Yeah.
I could see that. Well, I mean, hell, with Lower Decks, we got an entire a new character and then an entire episode involving Peanut Hamper, which was the Exo Comp, which was in like one episode of TNG.
Yeah.
I could see duplers in 50 years, but maybe being the protagonist on a show, like being one of the main characters, like multiple man in X-Force, like in X-Men, where you use those powers to help.
There could be like one entire ship that's just like completely staffed and piloted
With
and
one
everything
person?
by just one dupler. He just keeps like duplicating himself. And
He just
But-
every station.
pops in the 10 and takes over all the positions on the bridge.
But you said they in order for them to duplicate, they have to be annoyed, right? There has to be something
Embarrassed,
that
I think.
irritates them or
Embarrassed.
something, or
Yeah.
embarrassed.
Yeah. But you know what? Just
So
like
essentially, they're like B.A. Baracus that can duplicate,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that would be the kind of character they'd be.
I get on no plane.
I would have to think that if they were to use the duplers as a protagonist, it would have to be in one that was evolved a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Yeah.
it was conscious of of what it is and how it
More in control of its abilities.
Yeah. And it could, when it needed to duplicate, it could duplicate, and when,
It would have to turn to its friend and be like, "Embarrass me, quick,"
yeah,
because like they
Or-
need more.
either that or it would just know how to flex that muscle, and
Yeah.
so to speak.
I think
they
it'll be more of a Worf situation.
I could see that.
A dupler raised in like Russia.
So it has some confidence. I like it. Speaking of confidence, I know Noah's gonna go hard with number 3 here. Third and final.
I'm gonna branch out of the original series.
Ooh, what?
I know. Listen to the gas. I was waiting for that. On cue.
Mike hurt himself.
I'm gonna go with Armus.
I almost picked
Oh.
Armus. I swear, I almost put that on my list. I was so close. Hey, wait, look,
I actually
on.
had to go.
let me Google it. Let me Google it. How's that spelled? Armpits.
Armus. I actually had to go back and look at some of the lists that you had already sent, because I'm like, man, I bet somebody picked that already. I bet that's already on somebody's list, and I won't be able to do it. Again, I'm going on like visceral memories from watching Star Trek. So I specifically remember this is what Mike, you'll know this. Like, what season was this? Season 1?
Yeah,
Or
it was.
2?
It was like the episode 20, I think, of
It was
season
late
1.
in the season, yeah.
Of season 1, which came out in 1987. Okay, so then I was like in 6th grade or something, I think. So I was at my grandparents' house. I remember watching this, and I had been watching TNG pretty much the whole time, but I just remember both sort of the shock that like, oh wait, no wait, they really killed her, like they killed the main character. Oh my god, like it was pretty shocking. Like it did leave an impact on me. And also just like the creature, like although it's incredibly simple and almost ridiculous in the way that it looks, it almost looks CG, even though that they weren't using CG. I don't think. It just had that sort of weird mix of something to it that gave it a weird, truly like otherworldly look. Like it didn't.
Which is
Go ahead.
impressive.
It was
because
like-
it looks like a person in a bed sheet covered in tar.
It does.
Yeah,
That's
that's
exactly
what it
what it
looks
looks like.
But it was seriously frightening.
It was weird.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just really weird and creepy. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
even now today, as an adult watching the episode that I've seen countless times, it
Mhm.
still creeps me out. And I think it's a combination of that weird, solid black look that like it just looks like tar standing there, but also with like the voice. The voice is like very sinister.
hmm Yeah, I remember it just like it had an impact on me when I was watching it. It was dark and weird and creepy and
We should probably mention that if you don't know who Armus is the big tar creature that kills
It
Tasha
kills-
Yar
Tasha Yar.
Tasha
Yeah.
Yasha.
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end of season
Skin
1.
of
In
evil.
cold blood.
Yeah, the episode Skin of Evil.
Yeah.
Well, and then Armus also made an appearance on Lower Decks.
I was reading that.
Yes.
They were gonna prank call him or something.
No, they did. They had like a
They did.
casting stone thing from like some science excursion that they went on, so they were able to like project their voices down to Armus's planet, and they were just messing with them, calling him a big bag of crap. And then he trips over a rock behind him as he's getting mad, saying, "I am the Skin of Evil." And he trips over a rock and turns into a puddle. And Tindy goes, "Look at him. He looks like a puddle of shit."
No, Noah, you gotta watch Lower Decks, man. Come on, what's the problem?
I'll give it another shot. I'll try to.
It's not an overly large commitment.
No, not at all.
Yeah, there are currently
That's
30
true. That's
episodes,
true.
and they're 20-minute episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really only looking at like 10 hours total.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Get on it.
discipline. It's just lack of discipline. That's all it is. Just it all boils down to lack of discipline.
You don't have a job.
You're retired.
I know, but I don't watch 6 hours of television a day. I just
Not with
just
that
not-
attitude.
not in my routine.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
That's a good comeback, Mike. That's the only comeback.
For my last final pick,
There you go.
I am going to present you with
Spell it.
Spell it and then say it.
yeah. Xindi.
You're going to find a
Cindy.
lot of different results for that one, Noah.
Yeah,
X Indy.
yeah, Xindi. Search it and tell me what you find, Noah.
I find a scaly dude with about seven thick hairs on his head.
That's one of them.
Yeah. What else?
Mhm.
Oh, then there's a group of like 6 of them that I see, and then
Mhm.
they're sitting at a table. Some of them are sitting at a table with like a ant bug creature. Like
That is another
anthropomorphic
Xindi.
bug creature.
That's
another
Xindi.
Xindi. Why do they look so different?
Oh, just you wait, buddy. Keep looking.
Mike, explain this difference. And then there's well, that's really all I see.
Oh no, there's also aquatic Xindi.
Yeah,
Really, I don't know.
the fish, the whale looking Xindi.
Fish one.
Yeah.
It's not coming up in the initial. Oh no, there it is. There it is. Yep, I see him now.
And there's
It's a
they're
very
like-
confusing race.
there's
they're like a-
primates.
They look like manatees with weird insect arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of season 2 of Enterprise, in the last episode, wait, it was in the last episode, right? That's how it ends, season 2, or is this at the beginning of season 3?
Into season 2. Yeah.
Into season 2, right? Yeah, okay. So at the end of season 2, in the last episode, this big ball like it looks like a little Death Star, just like appears outside of Earth's atmosphere, and just shoots a beam at the Earth, and just
Right through Florida.
Yep, cuts a line across through the ocean and through part of Florida, and it just like
And Trip's sister.
Yep, kills Trip's sister.
Mike is so excited by this one.
So it turns out that this ball was sent by this race called the Xindi that live in the expanse. You like that, Chris?
I did.
And so okay. So there's this whole temporal Cold War going on throughout the first 3 seasons of Enterprise. And there's like these people from the future that are sending back messages to the past to try and change the course of history. So they tell the Xindi that the Earth is basically their enemy and it's going to destroy them. So the Xindi decide they're going to destroy Earth first. Now the Xindi, they are. It's a race of beings that they're actually I think originally there were 9 different types of Xindi. They talk about it in one of the episodes, but like a couple of them died off over the years, went extinct. But there's primates, there's insectoids, there's reptilians.
Insectoid.
Yeah. But you know they all live on the same, like in the same planet, and they all like work.
This sounds like an '80s kids cartoon and toy line.
It sounds like Transformers, like
honestly,
the what are those things called?
Insecticons.
Honestly, Noah, this is the closest thing to an '80s cartoon series that Star Trek has ever done. You are not wrong. So one of the coolest things about the Xindi and their appearance on Enterprise is, up to this point, Star Trek has been mostly episodic, with the exception of Deep Space Nine. Towards the end, got a little bit serialized, but it was still overall episodic. The first 2 seasons of Enterprise were episodic, but this season of Enterprise it's like television today. Like every episode was part of the story, and it just continued from episode to episode. Of course there are like maybe 3 or 4 throughout the season that can kind of stand alone, and they're not really part of the ongoing story, but it's pretty much like 20 episode story, like one giant arc.
Yeah.
And the Xindi, I mean, they're kind of a cool species that they brought into Star Trek. One of the reptilians is played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, nice.
At least in one of the episodes. He might have been in a couple of them, but you can't even tell it's him because of all the makeup.
Of course not, yeah.
But yeah, it made for a really awesome season of Star Trek, and I think probably the 4th season of Enterprise is pretty good too, but I think the 3rd season is probably the best.
Season rules. Most definitely.
So yeah, I mean, obviously you're a fan of Enterprise and you know what I'm talking about. How do you feel about the Xindi, Andy?
I loved the Xindi from the beginning. It was a little confusing as to why there was basically like 4 different species, but then you got to think, we're all Earthlings on Earth, but there's so many different races of us. So it made sense after a while, because I mean they're going to adapt to like climate and environment and everything like that. So the aquatics always fascinated me, because it always seemed like everybody was so scared of the aquatics. It's like, what are they going to do to you from inside that fish tank? But they could still, they're still somehow like the smartest and the most technologically advanced out of all the other Xindi. It's the weirdest thing to me still. I never really fully explained it, but yeah, I do like the ones that were like the more like kind of ape-like race.
The primates.
The primates, yeah. They seemed like the most progressive of the Xindi.
Definitely.
because they were just like, we just want peace. We're sick of these insects trying to start all this shit all the time. So, we're willing to work with you. You just got to you just got to do something for us first. But yeah, they were all very either sneaky or very like tactical about, like wanting to get along with these things from this place called Earth.
So, Chris, you've seen all of Enterprise. What do you think about the Xindi?
I thought the Xindi were a great villainous race. I really like Enterprise, and the first season was, it was the first season of a show. It was, it was good, but it's Enterprise, just like all other Star Trek property, it got better as it went along. But once it hit the Xindi, it really just took off, and that was it. Made a really interesting villain that you could, a lot like some of the other great villains, like the Klingon and Romulan, that sort of thing. They were different, and not just that they had a lot of different looks across the species, but also that they were just something brand new. And so it was, I enjoyed the Xindi.
I'm with you.
Noah, what do you think of the Xindi, Noah?
Just based on the pictures, the Xindi insectoid is by far my favorite.
Yeah.
They
were ridiculous.
Both its looks and its name just are hilarious.
Much better CGI than Species 8472.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Species 8472 and the insectoid Xindi and the Tholians look all like they might be related somehow. If you remember what the Tholians look like.
I don't remember what the Tholians look like.
They look like crystal spiders. Basically.
Yeah, you got to see one on Enterprise actually in one of the decon chambers.
In the episode The Tholian Web, there's one on the view screen.
Yeah.
Is there?
Is there?
It's been so long since I've watched that episode. I don't even remember.
You can barely, you can hardly see what it looks like.
Is that why it's a web?
Yes.
The Tholian web, because they're like a spider creature.
No, you have to look them up on the web to see what they look like.
I am. Boom! I do see some pictures of a Tholian, but that can't be. That's not from the original series.
The comic book, Star Trek Year 5, had a lot of good looks at the Tholian, what they look like. There's a one character in particular that's in that. I can't remember what his name was, but you get a really good look at the Tholian, and they're very crystalline in look, but they're also very insect-like, I think. Yeah,
in the original series, it was just a face on the view screen, I think, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, what do you got for your final pick on here?
So for my final pick, I chose what I think is probably the most terrifying alien in Star Trek. I don't know that it's as dangerous as some of the others, but if it gets a hold of you, it's horrifying to me. So SETI Alpha 5, which is where Khan was marooned, there is a single remaining indigenous life form after, I think, what was it, SETI Alpha 4 got knocked out of orbit or something, and it ruined SETI Alpha 5. And this is the SETI eel, which is a burrowing desert creature. And it has these, it's bug-like, it has this jointed carapace. And between the joints of this carapace, and it has like these pinchers in front, it's really creepy looking. And it's kind of, it's almost kind of arrow shaped, like an arrowhead. The flat end in the front, and then it tapers off.
Burrowing.
So in between these jointed sections of the carapace, that's where the larvae are produced. And if you take one of these larvae and put it in somebody's ear, it goes into the ear, it wraps itself around the cerebral cortex, and what it does is it causes incredible pain, but also the victim becomes very susceptible to outside suggestion. And so basically it's mind control with this creature. If it stays on there too long, then you have madness and eventually death. So it's this horrifying thing. I remember watch it. You see it in the first time we see it is the Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, yeah.
And Khan puts one of these things into Chekhov's ear, and I just remember watching this thing crawl up his face. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I just saw that in the theater a few weeks ago.
It gives me the willies every time. And what's funny is they actually show up again in Deep Space Nine, and you find out that they're edible. And they're I can't remember where you see them. Some marketplace or something.
Some off-world marketplace. I can't remember where it was.
They're selling the SETI eels. And that's actually where they first named them, because they were I don't remember what they called them in Wrath of Khan, but it wasn't SETI eel, I don't think. It was something else, wasn't it? Mike, you said you just watched it?
I don't know that they gave it a name.
Yeah. I don't think they did either. Yeah, and they but in Deep Space Nine they actually named it. I think that's where they first named it. But one thing I found that I thought was really interesting, especially given what we talked about with the salt vampire, is that Roddenberry didn't like that Kirk killed the SETI eel after it came out of Chekhov, because when it drops out of Chekhov, Kirk just basically vaporizes it with a phaser.
Yeah.
Because Roddenberry said it was an unknown species and it needed studying.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because he's the one that created the salt vampire and killed it. And this was a species that was unique, and because the SETI eel is also an endangered species, it just comes from one place, and even though it's predatory, it's not. It doesn't do that out of malice. It just does it for survival of the species. So,
that was many years later. So I'm sure Roddenberry,
maybe changed his mind.
Was changing his mind a little bit.
And that's that the whole idea of the Prime Directive had evolved at that point too, because that wasn't really that hadn't been they didn't have that concrete idea.
It wasn't fully established yet.
Yeah, in the man traps. So I get that, but I just thought it was funny. And this thing is the most terrifying. The Borg are scary, but if I woke up and I had a SETI eel crawling out my face, I think I might die.
So Chris, this was on my short list. Like I had to go back and I had to check yours and go, oh, I already did it. But this was definitely on my list because if you remember, I was talking about my buddy Justin, and we watched Star Trek together and play acted it, and it was like our thing as kids, and he lived next door to me. One major difference was that he had cable and I did not. So when I would go to his house, they would have, HBO, and they would have movies on and things that like.
Did they have this tank?
I was never exposed to. They did not. But at his house is where I saw all of Wrath of Khan as a kid, and that scene in particular was just like it can't really be right, but like I always felt like I just walked into his house on these scenes, and I don't think that was true. I just think that's just how it like burns it in my brain.
Yeah.
But like I both remember them both crawling into his ear, and then probably more vividly the like
screaming,
the extraction, the them coming out of the ear and like the blood out of it, like that just was just like, oh my God. Like it was Star Trek, but it was like next level Star Trek and naughty Star Trek. And like, I'm over here at my friend's house watching something that I probably wouldn't be allowed to watch at my own house because we don't even have cable to watch this. And it was like exciting and thrilling all at the same time and horrifying all at the same time. And it just, that is also a Star Trek memory that is very, very burned in my brain. And that was on my short list of aliens as well that
I would say these things are pretty iconic in the Star Trek world. They're horrifying. And I didn't, the other two that I chose are aliens that I think are just either funny or really cool. This is one that I just find horrifying. And I think that it was just such a unique idea. And also just super scary, at the time that Wrath of Khan came out, and just the idea that someone could put this creature. I mean, having a creature crawl into your body unbidden is horrifying enough as it is, but having one crawl into your body that can take control of it essentially is just terrible. It's just the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, what's funny is that I remember when I was a kid, even before I'd actually even seen an episode of Star Trek, I saw this again on HBO, like Noah saw it. And I still, I had nightmares about a SETI eel crawling into my ear, not even knowing what it was all about. But I just oh God, just they're seeing nasty. It and it says Chekhov's scream. It haunted me when I was little.
Well, and you only have so many holes in your body, and all of them are horrifying to think about something unwanted crawling into them. But the ears are sometimes a forgotten thing of
a forgotten hole.
A forgotten hole where you're like, no, that is a pretty horrifying place for a creature to crawl into.
I've seen. I think I saw a movie called that once.
Speaking of horrifying things that can crawl into you, Andy, what's your last pick?
Hey, wait, am I the horrifying thing that can crawl into you?
I hope not.
Into our psyche.
I mean,
our psyche hole.
I'm the biggest one in the band. I would hope I wouldn't be able to. I am going with a manufactured creature, humanoid life form. Matter of fact, they're born in birthing chambers.
Spell it.
You remember the cartoon Jem and the Holograms?
I just watched that today.
Yeah,
dude,
Claire and I were
Jem
watching it today.
Apostrophe Hadar, Hadar.
Oh, this is from Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah,
I remember that. So it looks like they're a genetically engineered reptilian-like humanoid species from the Gamma Quadrant.
And they're really into cocaine.
Okay.
Commander Sisko takes Jake and Nog on a camping trip. And Quark tags along. And they're just in the Gamma Quadrant, hanging out on the, in the mountains on this camping trip. Quark's complaining about how hot it is and how the bugs don't taste good because they're not Ferengi bugs. And Jake and Nog are all excited about doing their little scans and getting their little report for school or whatever. And then suddenly these aliens show up and they kidnap them and they put them all in a cave. And that's the Jim Hadar.
You heard right, a cave.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was it? I thought this was your pick, Mike.
I was just moving it along.
Yeah.
How you didn't even let me even start. We went from Noah trying to figure out what these things were, and then you jumped right in.
So Andy, didn't they serve as the military arm of the Dominion?
Oh my God.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they were manufactured just to basically be like the muscle, and they were controlled by basically the army of Wayuns, more or less. They were their bosses, but they were super subservient, and they had the ranks and everything. It was I am number one, you only number three, you listen to me. But I loved the simple fact that they were so subservient, and just all they wanted to do was just kill in the name of the shapeshifters. And
in the name of.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way they were able to be kept alive was basically heroin, the white.
Ketracel white.
Ketracel white.
Yeah.
Or as they actually just called it amongst themselves, the white. Which I was like, if that's not just an out and out drug reference. I mean, come on. But yeah, the Jem'Hadar were amazing. From the first time that you saw them, you saw how dangerous they were going to be. What like Mike brought up about the whole camping trip and everything, and like when they kidnapped O'Brien and Bashir to try to basically figure out how to wean the rest of the soldiers off of the white so they could live normal lives. Like it was neat to see, like some of them that were just complete like killing drones, basically just like they only had one thing in life, but every now and then you would like run across one that's like, I am done with all this military bullshit, I just want to live my life. And of course they would just wind up dead.
Or in an alien 12-step program,
more or less, yeah. But it was a 12-step program of their own choosing, though.
yes.
Was this like season 3 of Deep Space Nine?
So the last episode of season 3 of Deep Space Nine is called the Jem'Hadar's their first appearance.
And that was the first appearance?
Yeah.
And then they play a pretty prominent role in the first half of season 4?
They're just in the rest of the series.
Okay.
Yeah. They were in and out of there. They had some pretty amazing battles, and I would put them up there with the Borg, with like a threat, like an actual threat to the Federation. Like had their forces been able to come fully all the way through the wormhole, like that would have been it. They would have been done. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can get all the California class ships to come and help you out at your little space station.
California class.
It's not going to happen. You're going to be done.
It's a good thing those good Pa Wraiths closed up the wormhole.
Are you defending Pa Wraiths right now?
I said the good Pa Wraiths.
The good ones. He said.
Oh, the good Pa. So just the
Well, Mike, is that a spoiler? They closed the wormhole?
It's not like you're going to watch the rest of the series.
The wormhole
anyway,
was
Noah.
still open when I stopped at season 4, episode 19.
Oh my god!
What the hell, man? Thanks a lot.
Keep going.
Thanks a lot.
No, it gets better in that next
Does
season.
it get better? Okay, as long as it gets better.
You know what they needed to defend against the Jem'Hadar?
What?
Handful of SETI eels, baby. Just throw
Some
those
dupplers.
out there. Some dupplers. Yeah.
Dupplers. They could fire like torpedoes full of dupplers at the Jem'Hadar ships.
Yeah.
Because I mean, of course, they're gonna make them embarrassed and nervous, so they're just gonna keep on multiplying, just choke them out, basically. The weird little visor thing that they had to wear when they're flying the ships, that kept on giving
stay on target,
Garrick.
Stay on target.
Because Garrick could only wear it for so long because it could start giving him a headache.
So, Andy, how did the Jem'Hadar? How did they view the founders?
Oh, they were the. Are you really just asking me questions from Wikipedia right now?
I'm just curious,
they were their gods.
Oh, gods! They were their gods.
They were their absolute gods.
Huh?
Yeah, and then like
and then how are the what are they called? The pod wraiths, pod racers. How are the pod racers? How are they connected to the founders?
They're not.
They're not.
No.
What about the pod wraiths? Are they connected to the founders?
Is that what you literally just asked?
I was talking about pod racers, but I don't.
Oh no, the pod raids are not connected to the founders.
No.
That's all I got. All I got about the Jem'Hadar. I loved that race, even though they were manufactured. I loved that Worf tried to raise one. Wait, was it Worf that tried to raise?
No, it was Odo.
Oh, no, it was Odo. That's right. Odo tried to raise one from birth after Quark found it in the salvaged wreckage that he bought.
Like a little dragon.
Yeah, they were definitely a cool introduction to the Dominion. And when you watch that episode, like the first time you're watching the series, especially when it originally aired, like you don't even have any idea how important they're going to be for the rest of the series. They're just like, you think they're just like a one-off villain for that episode, but then they become like the big bad, along with the founders and the Vorta and the Breen.
You didn't realize at first like how weird and like how far out and like far going this is going to stretch.
Yeah.
It's like this is just the Jem'Hadar were just like the tip of the iceberg, and then you get to the Vorta, who are just smarmy buttholes, and then realize that they're linked to the founders, who in turn are Odo's race.
Spoiler.
Nuts. So much intrigue.
All right, so that's the end of our lists. But we are going to go through a real quick list of our
honorable mentions.
Yeah, our honorable mentions, our secondary systems, as Jim Morehouse would call it. But to hear that, you will have to go listen to it on our Patreon, because we are going to stop right now. Like 5-Year Mission, and do you like getting exclusive content? You should head over to Patreon right now and visit 5-Year Mission, because we've got all the exclusive content you're not getting on any other social media. There's videos, pictures, sometimes we post news there before we post it anywhere else, behind the scenes of us working on albums and podcasts, and sometimes just pictures of us goofing off that we don't put anywhere else, only on Patreon. And there are many options to choose from. You can be a lieutenant commander, you can be a captain, you can even be an admiral. Each of those comes with their own special perks. One of the perks of being an admiral is that you get to be a producer on this podcast. Currently, our producers are Carol Jones, Jen Tift, Helen Lake, Steve and Frankie Palopoli, Roxy and Becky, Debbie Rinke, Madison Rachel Jones, and Jim Morehouse. So what are you waiting for? Go to Patreon/5-Year Mission right now. That's the number 5-Year Mission. And sign up. It's that easy.
Blah, 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 blah.
Hey everybody, this is Mike from 5-Year Mission, and I'm here to give you the laziest Fansets ad that you have ever heard. Go to fansets.com and use the code TrekGeeks, all caps, and you will get a discount off of your Fansets pins when you place your order. Fansets. Their pins have character or something. Thanks, Fansets, for sponsoring this podcast.
John Billingsley, Phil Phlox, Hollywood Food Coalition here. Guess what? Trek Talks 2. It's happening. You asked for it. You got it. January 14, 8 hours of premium Star Trek entertainment. Amazing guests, mad cappery, insightful social commentary, musical interludes. Support HoFoCo. Check us out at hofoco.org, helping people in need for almost 40 years. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on the 14th of January at trektalks.net. Live long and mark your calendars. Again, trektalks.net.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast.
Good
Creature
job.
feature.
Parentheses and aliens.
And aliens.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to us talk about the our favorites and our most interesting and most fascinating choices.
Most hated.
Yeah, and most hated. Well, no, for most hated, you're gonna have to go listen to it on Patreon.
Yeah, you do. You have to check out Patreon for that.
That's patreon.com/5-Year Mission, number 5-Year Mission. But yeah, we had a lot of fun tonight, but we are done. It is late, and we all want to go back to our lives. So bye.
I didn't get to bed.
Creature feature.
And aliens.
I sure want
Thank you for listening to 5-Year Mission, the podcast. If anyone is interested in listening to more of our music, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere that you can listen to music. Just search for 5-Year Mission and we will be the first thing that pops up. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at 5yearmissionband@gmail.com. You can also find us at 5yearmission.net and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
5-Year Mission, the podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
This has been a Classic Rittenhouse production.